rights that were only intended for human beings? And do you know that they use those rights to flood our elections with dirty money, pollute our air, poison our water, destroy good jobs, and tank our economy? Yeah, you're right, that is crazy. I know, who actually believes that stuff? Well, actually 9 unelected judges on the Supreme Court do. Yeah, I know, I never voted on it either. I know, it's unfair. Well, would you be willing to sign a petition so we can get on the ballot in November and declare our independence from corporate rule? And 8 out of 10 people signed. Most of the ones who didn't couldn't because they lived outside of Salt Lake City, but they wondered when it would be coming to their town. And we said soon. We told them that this year alone, 90 cities across the country are passing move to amend resolutions calling to abolish corporate personhood and get money out of elections. We told them that we wouldn't stop there, that we'd take it to other cities next year, then to the county, then to the states, then drive it into Congress through the sheer force of will and people power. They said, be in touch. 8 out of 10 people. Tell me, what more proof do you need that our government does not represent us than to know that 80% of the population is for something, but it doesn't happen because a few corporate elites don't want it to? The other people who didn't sign said something similar. They said, I believe in what you're doing, but it just won't work. They laughed and said, that's cute that you believe this stuff still works. They said, I don't do politics. And I asked them why, and they'd say, because everything is broken, because people have no power. And I would look at them and ask them, do you think I would be out here if I believed the system was working? Do you think I would stand in the heat and cold, getting kicked out of every public and private space I stood in because I think things are good in this country? I'm here because I know the score. I know the system is broken. I have no illusions about how hard it will be to fix, how many people it will require, or how long it will take. I'm here for only one reason, because I believe in a beautiful, giant, unstoppable grassroots movement of everyday people.
Move to amend! Move to amend!
Because I used to accept that corporations control every meaningful part of my life, then sat in my basement paralyzed. Because I did that and it didn't feel good. I meant what I said to these people. This is not an issue of policy reform. This is not just about money and politics or Citizens United or campaign finance. Ask yourself, how strong was your democracy before Citizens United? Yeah, I thought so. This is a democracy movement. It's a movement about sovereignty. It's a movement about people making decisions on the issues that affect their lives. It's a movement of everyday people declaring their independence from corporate rule. These are big words, and we mean them. In 1776, a group of folks known alternatively as rebels or revolutionaries gathered together in Philadelphia and passed a remarkable document. They called it the Declaration of Independence. It was, to say the least, bold. It said that human beings, not monarchs, were the rulers of their own government. It said that governments existed not just for these people, but because of these people. It was a revolutionary document in the truest sense. It reordered the world, turned it upside down. It questioned the entire logic of who was in charge. It said kings were no longer sovereign. It said people could rule themselves. It said people were in charge. At the time of its writing, the Declaration was just a pile of words. The people who wrote it were still wholly under the thumb of the very system they were defying. They had just begun to organize, just begun to fight. The people who wrote that declaration won their fight, and they wrote a constitution. It starts with the phrase, "We the people." There was only one problem. Given the requirements of being a person, only 8% of the people in this country counted as part of that we. Certainly not women, who build this country alongside men. Certainly not African Americans who were enslaved in the name of profit. Certainly not poor people who had fought for economic independence but were still essentially serfs. And certainly not Native Americans whose land this is and who experienced the revolution as a genocide. If we understand this, we can understand one vital thing, that the history of this country is, as Howard Zinn claimed, a history of people toiling and organizing and fighting to drive themselves into the phrase, "We the people." That if there's anything valuable about being an American, it's the beautiful history of all the people who weren't considered Americans in the first place. It is a good thing to be counted as a human. It means you are real, powerful, entitled to basic rights and dignities. It is something so important that people have been lynched, assassinated, imprisoned, and repressed in their fight for it. Most of the people working for a real democracy never saw it, and they are counting on us to make it real. And if we understand that, we will understand why we are gathered here on these steps almost 250 years later to declare our independence from corporate rule. We will understand why it is such a grotesque insult after decades of oppressed people fighting to be understood as people that corporations have invaded this sacred terrain and claimed it as their own. We will understand what is at stake is not just campaign finance or representative democracy, but all the rights humans have fought for centuries. Because a corporation is not a person. It does not die. It does not sleep. It does not love. It has no feelings. It is incredibly powerful. And if a corporation is a person, if money is speech, then democracy cannot exist. Real people suffer. 250 years ago, people declared their independence from a form of concentrated political power known as monarchy. We are here today to declare our independence from a form of concentrated economic and political power known as corporate rule. We are here to legalize democracy, because when corporations have human rights, democracy is illegal. And finally, we are here to create democracy, because real democracy has never fully existed. We are here because we actually believe these words, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed with unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that governments derive their power from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. We are here to ask thousands, millions of everyday people if they believe those words. We are here to ask, does your government exist for you? Does it protect your life, liberty, and happiness? Do you, a real person, matter in your democracy? The answer for most people is no. And since these are not just words we repeated in high school civics, we will have to take seriously our subsequent duty to alter the form of government that deprives us of those unalienable rights. That is why we are standing with 90 cities across the country today to say one thing. We demand an amendment to the Constitution to say that corporations are not people and money is not speech. We demand the right to be real. And we have no illusions about the difficulty of our task. It is tempting to do what corporations want and what the Declaration warns against, to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right them by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. It is tempting to believe our system is so broken that a people's movement is impossible, that we have been conquered. But we cannot accept that because our history is calling us to make democracy real. The Declaration of Independence is not a historical document. It is an unfinished document, marred by racism and sexism and classism and short-sightedness. But in its words is a mandate for the future, to declare our independence from all systems that ignore or harm the unalienable rights of real and equal people. Our government doesn't give us those things. We are those things already. Our government is real only if it recognizes us for what we already are. So we are here to declare our independence. Today we are submitting two things: our 11,400 petition signatures, our grievances, and our principles. Our grievances are these: that corporations have taken over our government, that they flood our elections with dirty money, that they make our laws and control our elected officials, that they have invaded every space, every thought, and every decision we make, that they have destroyed our elections, our land, our economy, our jobs, and our future, that they have taken from us our right to make the very meaningful decisions that would fix those things, that they rule over us. And our principles, that regular people matter, that they are smart and capable and able to make their own decisions, that we are the government, that the government is ours, that we have a right to all the things that real beings need to survive: clean air, clean water, clean food, good jobs, good ideas, respect, dignity, and creativity. That these things are inalienable, invaluable, and so much more important for profit. And I'm here today remembering a woman I met when I was lobbying for clean air in DC. She was from Kentucky, and she told me while crying that she lived in a place ringed around by a trash incinerator, a mountaintop removal site, a coal plant, and a refinery. She said that everybody in her town was sick. She said that they died early, and she said that when they tried to come to Washington, D.C. and demand their rights for health and prosperity, they were ignored because the politicians who were supposed to represent her actually represented the corporations. I know that if this woman were in charge, she would not create a world where she was ringed about by pollution and unrepresented in her government. She would get together with other people and make solutions, and that is what this movement is about. And so here today we have 11,400 people in a pack or a pile over there somewhere who have signed our declaration. And we're waiting for you to sign it too and help us make democracy real in this country. Thank you. And I want to thank everybody who standing on these steps today, could you raise your hand if you went out and got signatures for this campaign? Could you raise your hand if you talked to your neighbors about it? Could you raise your hand if you feel braver now than you did 2 months ago? Okay, this is why we're doing it. Thank you to everybody, every regular citizen and every regular person who is involved in this fight. And thank you to the people who have supported us officially. We have here with us Elf from Streamline Industries, right? Who let us put a petition at his store. We have Pete Ashdown, who let us put a petition at X Mission. We have Ben McAdams here, the mayor was here earlier. Soren Simonson has supported us. Ross Romero has been out collecting with us. We have support from different labor unions and all sorts of regular folks who are coming together to make this happen. So thank you to every organization and every person who made this real. This is incredible. I mean, how many people thought at the beginning that we were going to be able to collect 11,400 signatures? Okay, even my mom thought maybe we wouldn't, and she knows I'm crazy, so. So yeah, thank you everybody. And if anybody has any questions, we can take those now.
Thank you, Ashley.
Okay, are there any questions that people want answered?
What's going to happen next?
Good question. We planted him in the audience. So our next step is to get ready for the November elections. This is going to be on the ballot so that every single Salt Lake City voter can go and vote on whether they think corporations are people and money is speech, and whether they think they have a right to their democracy. And they are going to say, yes, I want an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to say that corporations are not people and money is not speech. So please, if you haven't been involved already, or if you want to get more involved, we meet every Wednesday and we're going to start preparing for how to do a mass education program in this city to get to every household and tell every person what we're doing and hear every person's story about how corporate rule affects them and how they want to be part of the solution. So that's what we're gearing up for, and we want all of y'all to be part of it. So. Anything else?
Truly made history with this?
Yes, we did. Thank you. Another good question. So Salt Lake, I believe that this is, in history that I can find, I believe this is the first People's Initiative ballot resolution that has ever been on the ballot in Salt Lake City. So we made history. And if our signatures are counted and we get in, which we will because our initial goal was 7,142 signatures. We are crossing our fingers for 9,000. We blew it out of the water with 2,400 more. But we are going to be the first city in the Move to Amend campaign who has gotten on the ballot through collecting enough signatures to be there. So through sheer voter mandate. Awesome. But we don't want to be the